Warning, if you're somebody who's disgusted at discussions of people who don't already have everything they need, then this episode of the Seriously Wrong podcast is not for you.
Hey Aaron, can I ask you something? I need help. I need help with something. Would you, as a friend, be willing to help me with what I'm going through?
Probably not. No, I don't know. I'm actually really busy. I have a lot of things going on right now. What is it?
Oh, just if you're not on board, I don't want to...
I mean, before I make a decision...
I just need to know ahead of time.
Okay, then no.
So I just think I deserve help, so...
How I see it is I'm helping you by not helping you, because this is going to let you help yourself.
I don't think that's really... for example, like if I was a short person and there was like cookies on a tall shelf, I mean... You're not really helping me by not helping me get the cookies if you're a tall person. It's really no...
This is a society based on individualism and individuals doing things cut off from everyone else in a way where they're able to do things without any other input. If there was cookies on a small
shelf, I would absolutely get it for you as a tall person. I mean, if I was a short person, you're a tall person.
Yeah, I could just grab them, though.
Like you just bend over?
Yeah.
Well, maybe there'd be like a... cookies on the other side of a small tunnel, and I'd have to crawl through it.
I might clone myself, a small version of myself to...
Well, you become utterly dependent on your small clone.
Well, you want me to be utterly dependent on you, so...
No, I want to have a voluntarily free associative, interdependent relationship just as part of society. Like, we all come from two people working together to have a baby. You know, we're raised by communities. Our food is shipped here by...
I don't really see
thousands of individuals working together.
I don't really see it that way. For example, parentage, I see it first as the father does the work of implanting the sperm, and then the mother does the work of growing and raising the baby, while the father does the work of making the money. But all these things happen separate from each other as individuals.
This just makes no sense.
Food creation, for example. The farmer, as an individual, hires other individuals to help work his farm, but they all do that individually.
Yeah, and they're not a collective at that point.
No, because they're individuals.
So like when you have three people together, if they do something bad, it's a collective, but if they all do good things, it's because they're individuals.
If you're paying someone to be there, you know that they're there out of their own individualism because they want to get money, and you know you're there out of your individualism because you want to use them as a tool towards your end. And then it all works out.
Okay, so what I'm getting is a big red stop sign on the getting help from you.
Yes,
train.
Yeah.
So just no help.
No help. Yeah, actually, this whole conversation has actually been a little bit too much help to offer you all this information.
It's been utterly unhelpful.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
A stack of plates here that I'm going to smash to pieces every time a caller makes a contribution to the station. The dinner plates I'm going to smash are souvenir dinner plates with a picture of an offshore oil well in the center. And every time a caller makes a contribution to the station, one of these ugly dinner plates goes to dinner plate heaven.
That's right, everyone. It's that time of year again, and we are doing a Seriously Wrong fundraiser. You know, our audience is some of the best podcast listeners in the world. You're sharp, you're funny, you're interested in both sides of the debate, and sometimes you like to listen to Shawn and I make fools of ourselves, which we love you for. I'll be quick. We're launching a Patreon. You know, Shawn and I would love to be able to spend more time on the podcast, researching, getting interviews, recording and editing, getting new software, new equipment, and you can help us do that for a really low amount of money. $1 an episode, you get our eternal thanks and listed on the donor page of our website. $3 an episode, you get access to extra special content. We have a lot of stuff saved up. We're going to edit it down, post it up for you to listen to. Exclusive content for people who give $3 an episode. For $7 an episode, you get access to the extra content, you get extra super special bragging rights, and we'll send you some stickers. And finally, for the low, low price of $50 per episode, Shawn and I will back you up in internet debates, and we will help you get to the bottom of things. All right, that's it. I don't want to take up too much of your time. This week on the show, we are talking about asking for help, and we are asking for your help financially and in other ways. You can comment on the show, post the show on your social media, talk to your friends about it. Post the show on your social media, spread the word, keep listening, encourage others to listen. Thank you so much. We love you.
It's hard to ask for help when you need it sometimes for a lot of people.
It's weird. It's almost like admitting that you can't do everything all on your own, like everything that it takes to run your life, including running all of society. Like if you can't do that all on your own, there's some problem.
Yeah.
That like you have a personal failing of some kind.
Yeah, that is totally the unconscious like ideology of it. Oh man, it's so true. There's this weird assumption within ourselves that we point at ourselves like, man, I should have already been born with all knowledge. I should have
Yeah.
I should have been a master craftsman already. I'm such an idiot compared to master craftsmen.
Yeah, like why do I need to ask anyone for help with my home repairs or with moving? Like if I planned enough, I would be stronger and more durable, and I could just move my whole apartment myself in one day without even the help of a moving truck.
There's a side to this. There's a side to the weird over-individualistic ethic that actually benefits some of the worst collectives. Some of the worst institutions are beneficiaries of this, because instead of like asking my friends and community for help with things like, you know, depression or alcoholism, or I've got a weird rash or something, I'm asking Google. I'm asking American corporations.
Right.
And they
right.
have more information on... Google remembers better what medical conditions I've Googled and at what times than I do.
Google has more information on those kind of things, but having a friend actually like share an experience, they can be like, oh yeah, no, I went through a hard time, and they tell you their story, and you feel a human connection with them. And that actually helps with your depression.
Mm-hmm. And maybe helps actually incite you to see that there's other help that you can get, and that people naturally want to help you when you ask. Mm-hmm. If you maintain any social relationships whatsoever, the people that you maintain social relationships with will really, really want to help you if you need help 100% of the time.
It's just basic empathy, like the process that goes on. You're just like, oh, I want to help them because I would like to be helped. It's a very basic drive that without we probably wouldn't have made it this far as a species.
We are together as a single thing, an interdependent meta entity.
Yeah, interdependent system of interactions, and it's just completely impossible to do everything yourself. To learn to be a lone wild man in the woods by yourself, living off
just
of nature.
By being dropped there when you're like a toddler or something.
Yeah, right, because you couldn't have any like preparation from society.
Yeah, even being a toddler, it's like you kind of got a leg up. That's kind of public assistance.
Right. Yeah.
It's not really fair. Like the baby didn't have to teach itself. Like the baby got fed milk for like several years, and like that's a lot of time for the baby to be able to look at the world and build a map of reality, you know, like, and understand what goes on around it. Like that's a lot of just wasted time leeching.
It's so funny, yeah, that you bring up babies, because we're just like biologically born needing help. Like we need help for years and years and years after we're born, until we can kind of barely fend for ourselves ish. Compared
to other animals' development, like where humans are when they're born is still like a fetal stage by a lot of comparative metrics.
Yeah, because we have such a big brain, we gotta like be pushed out early.
Mm-hmm. Like horses come out of the womb tap dancing, and they know exactly where the hay is.
Tap dancing.
They learn how to tap dance in the womb, which is more than you can say. Oh, stupid humans.
Take a look at my birth video, and you'll see how well I tap danced.
I've seen that birth video. It'd be cool if on Facebook everyone posted their birth video, like
at the beginning of their timeline.
Yeah, when you scroll all the way down, there's like them crowning.
Right. Yeah. That's the screenshot of the video. Yeah. You could put them on a little bit fast, like 4x maybe, just to save some time. Just like,
yeah. Well, if I see a video is more than a minute 30 seconds, I'm not clicking.
Yeah.
And birth takes a while.
Yeah.
So you got to speed it up. I want to see my friends get born, but I'm a busy man.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just biologically we need help. We're born needing help for years, and then we never grow into a state of not needing any help. So logically, there should be no shame in asking for help. And yet there is.
This is probably just like a crude evolutionary psychology thing, but I wonder if it comes from like the primitive idea of a provider, and the idea of being provided for means that you're under in hierarchy, being a beta male or something to be provided for.
It's funny because people who are really rich and hence therefore a good provider are often the people who are like, I have a servant to wait on me and someone to clean my house for me and someone to do my sponge baths and
I'm not getting help. I've earned the help.
Yeah. It's even called the help.
The help. Yeah.
So even rich people are okay asking for help. No, they're okay
telling for help,
demanding for help, exchanging for help. There's mutual help. I help you by sending you a pittance, and you help me by doing my laundry.
You know, I'd pay you enough to pay your rent, but I could find someone else who would probably work for about the rate that I've offered you. So maybe you should just be a thankful mutual partner here who is fully in control.
And if you need more for your rent, maybe there's other things you could do to help earn that.
Get a second job. I'm not the boss of your life. I'm just the boss of you while you're here, and I determine your wage.
If I could change the minimum that everyone else is asking for, I would have to pay you more, and I'd be glad to do it at that point. Yeah. But now, like, it just wouldn't be fair to me for me to pay you more than the minimum that I could.
You see, there's rational choices and then there's irrational choices. You want to avoid irrational choices. That's where you do things that are silly you don't need to do. And in this case, that would be paying you enough for rent.
Yeah, I mean, who's doing who the favor here? Because I have a whole lineup of people outside that I could choose from.
It's around the block.
So, I mean, if I choose you, that would be a favor to you. Whereas, I mean, you didn't do me any particular favor by adding one more person to the line, I gotta say. Like, there's nothing special about your resume.
Yeah,
no offense.
Just consider capitulating. Just consider... So people don't want to feel vulnerable. And it's scary to make yourself vulnerable to other people, especially people that you want to impress. You don't want to be seen for what you fear that you actually are. but we actually aren't the thing that we fear that we are, nor are we the thing that we pretend to be. We're all just really cool, fun people who want to be ourselves and have fun, and there's nothing wrong with that. And people like it when you're vulnerable. People like to see vulnerability. It's part of our psychology, and it actually brings a lot of joy to a lot of people to be a helpful person. It literally gives meaning to our lives to help each other.
Vulnerability is an endearing trait. It kind of shows a sense of authenticity. It's not generally something that people will share with each other right away, so it's also kind of a sign of a growing sense of ease between two people or a relationship that's developed, and to be able to be vulnerable or taking the step to initiate vulnerability can deepen a relationship and can really benefit both people involved.
On that note, sometimes, I feel lonely when I can't get a hold of anyone. Just kind of want to talk to someone. Other times, I feel sad for no specific reason, and it passes, but that's just living life, being me, I guess, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Sometimes I am just really scared to go out to social gatherings or to any place where there's like a lot of people who I don't know, who I might interact with.
I had a friend of mine kind of dismiss the podcast like socially in front of people, making a joke that I spend too much time on it. I guess it's just because he feels kind of like left aside, like I don't spend as much time with him anymore. But it really hurt my feelings to know that someone close to me didn't believe in me. So that was kind of rough.
Yeah, I don't think my parents have ever listened to the podcast, and anytime I've ever mentioned it to them, it just kind of been like, oh yeah, okay, and started talking about something else. Like, I don't think they take it seriously.
My paternal father, my genetic father,
yeah.
When him and my mom broke up and had all this shit happen when I was a kid, a judge ordered him to write a letter to me in order to gain visitation rights again. And on principle, he didn't. And I tracked him down when I was 18 years old, like 10 years later. He just didn't write me a letter.
Wow. That's all it would have taken to
yeah, and then we could have visited all those years. And then when I visited him, I lent him $50 to buy tobacco, which he promised he would pay back on his next payday, which he didn't. And then anytime I brought it up, he would say, "You always bring that up," instead of paying me back. And he's not going to listen to this because he doesn't give a fuck about the things I give a fuck about at all.
Well, I spent like 10, 12 years of my life just really scared that if I told anybody I knew my sexual preferences, that they either wouldn't like me, or I would lose friends, or I would be made fun of, or just that people would think negatively of me.
I'm starting to like kind of identify something in myself in relation to like romantic entanglements, where I tend to get overcommitted very easily and I feel like I end up kind of like hurting people, and I feel like I end up getting hurt also. And so I'm trying to figure out how to legitimately look at what I want in my life. I just don't want to let my like fear of being alone be something that ends up hurting people that I care about.
I kind of feel like I'm not a very good friend. I don't initiate a lot of conversations, even with people who are my good friends. I feel like most of my good friends are my good friends because they take the time to do the work to keep our friendships going. You know, Shawn and I always try to be as open and honest on the show as we possibly can. And if that's something you appreciate, we would be so grateful if you would take the time, go to patreon.com/seriouslywrong and just take a look at what we have there to offer. Remember, for just $3 an episode, there is extra content. $3 an episode, that's $12 a month if we post 4, which we usually do. You can set a monthly cap so that you never pay more than you expect to. Either way, we're going to keep putting out the podcast every week. Thank you so much for listening.
So what do you think are serious reasons that people might ask for help in their life, where they might find it very hard to ask for help?
I think it becomes harder to ask for help the more you're asking of someone. So if it's financial help, obviously, the more money you're asking for is going to be a lot harder. It's easy to be like, hey, I'm borrow 50 cents. I don't have enough change for this. But it's really hard to be like, I just got in a car accident and the insurance deductible is $2,000 and I don't have it. And is there any way you could lend me $2,000? Or so crisis situations where there is a large financial burden, and other kinds of crisis, like crises of personal mental health, of like, I am having a problem, I need help, I've been depressed for a really long time, or I'm having suicidal thoughts or something.
Having severe anxiety or paranoia, feeling alienated from your own thoughts in some way. There's like a huge social stigma to admit that you are not feeling in yourself and not feeling normal. Which just exacerbates the problem of reaching out to your friends and colleagues and family.
Another thing might be help getting through tough times in your life, like a breakup or a death of someone close to you. You might need support. You might need someone to talk to, and that's hard. You might not want to impose on people. You might feel like, oh, no one wants to be around me while I'm all sad.
And there's people that just like really want nothing more than for you to express yourself fully to them and hear you, and then see in your face that you feel heard. It makes them feel so warm, so deeply inside, because of how much they care for you or how much they care for helping others. These people exist.
So if I need to ask for help,
yeah,
what do I do?
Yeah, well, it depends on the type of help that you're looking for. Like in the example of crazy cocaine Shawn has gone too far with his cocaine addiction. For a long time, he was balancing it. Oh, I was just a casual cocaine user, but it's gone over the edge. I've alienated friends and family, and I'm feeling distant. I'm feeling like I'm losing opportunities in my life. I feel like I've begun to hate what I'm doing, and I'm doing it compulsively, and I don't feel like I can necessarily help myself to not do it anymore. Mm-hmm. This is an extreme example of someone really needing help of a specific kind where there's huge barriers to asking for that help. In that case, generally speaking, what you want to do is reach out to your family, whether or not they're your biological family, doesn't matter. Reaching out to the closest people in your life who you have a type of familial bond with, and not keeping your cocaine problem secret is another good idea, is because you're just going to feel like it doesn't matter whether or not you do cocaine because no one knows.
Yeah. Being open with that kind of stuff can make it feel more real in a way that will actually help you deal with it and will create opportunities for people who want to help you. Yeah,
it's not necessarily a shift in whether or not you're tweeting about your cocaine problem, but it's a shift in whether or not you're willing to speak about every aspect of your life, which a lot of people have huge aspects of their life that they're not willing to speak about, which I think is a fostering ground for cognitive dissonance and behavior that we don't necessarily identify with. The things that we don't talk about are maybe the things that we have a hard time actually grappling with personally. Another place where you might need to ask for help that is very, very a serious thing is if you have experienced some type of abuse. Again, there's a lot of social stigma around speaking out about this kind of thing. Like in the example of if you're harassed in your workplace, you're basically a whistleblower to say, so-and-so did this to me, made me feel uncomfortable and didn't respect my boundaries or didn't respect the professionalism of the workplace. That's a situation where help is needed. Talking to people and getting help is probably needed.
Yeah, it's a really hard situation. Like you could potentially lose your job. You're dealing with a superior from you at the workplace, superior in the hierarchy of the...
Not superior, like inherently. Like a superior person wouldn't sexually harass someone.
Yeah, exactly. But because those situations can be so touchy, yeah, it's definitely, you want to have people on your side, people who you can talk to and talk about your feelings with, to share how this feels for you and how this experience is for you. Because having difficult emotions and having difficult experiences and not having a place where you can, like you mentioned, tell them to someone and see in their eyes that they heard you and feel heard is like death. It's like it's really, really difficult and not good for your health, mental or emotional or physical.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell on this because it is the opposite of funny. But if you feel like there's no one you can talk to right now, there are people out there to talk to, both professionally and informally. It's important to have confidence in that.
Yeah, and it's always true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah, asking for help is really real in the colloquial sense of like, that's real. Like, that's way too real, man.
Yeah, of like deep or important.
It comes from a place of this vulnerability of not being this like stoic individual participating in society who knows exactly how to make a resume, who knows exactly how to show up on time for work, who knows exactly how to schedule one's week to include all of one's friends in a fair manner.
Right.
Like, no, these people, we don't exist. Our idea of this person that we're supposed to be doesn't exist in anyone. I heard this awesome phrase from a friend, which is less perfection, more magic.
I like that. Perfectionism is the voice of the oppressor.
Almost in 100% of scenarios. It's the voice of the oppressor saying, "Oh, are you a good enough recycler? How can you advocate for stopping mass pollution in factories if you're not going to precisely recycle according to the system put forward in front of you?"
It's there to stop you from doing the thing you want to do by just telling you that you can't do it good enough or you might not do it good enough.
But maybe everything that we do when we're doing it from a really sincere, heartfelt place is good enough.
Yeah, unless it's really awful. Like, you're a sincere, heartfelt bigot, and fill in the blank with what happens after that. But yes, generally, I agree with you.
I just think the bigots should go back to their own countries.
Yeah.
In Europe.
In Europe? Yeah. What if we just sent all bigots to Bigot Land?
Bigot Island?
We already had the White Straight Island.
That's an innocuous idea for an island. I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah, so the way I see less perfection, more magic is magic in this metaphor would represent anything that you don't expect to happen that you're glad did happen.
Because you tried something, because you weren't scared of not being perfect, because you took the leap of faith to be like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to attempt to do this thing.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to make myself vulnerable. I'm going to put myself in front of other people. And within the context of this podcast that we've created, I feel like we've been very much living by the mantra of less perfection, more magic from pretty strongly in episode 1 on.
Are you trying to say episode 1 was less perfect than future episodes?
Yeah, I'd say that the first episode of this podcast was imperfect, but still magical.
Yes, I agree.
It was like, the second or third time that we ever hung out?
Yeah, third, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, have we talked about this before? We should just go through it anyways.
I don't think so.
Welcome to Seriously Wrong Story Time. Today's story is, where did Seriously Wrong come from, and how did it start, and who are these guys?
That's the title? That's the title of the story?
Yeah, it's SEO friendly. So, in 2012, I was a prominent member of the Pirate Party of Canada, a political party that focuses on intellectual property reform and net neutrality. And I had some networked contacts in Calgary. At this time, I was living in Vancouver, but I had some network contacts in Calgary, including Raz and Olivia. And Raz shared a video on his timeline that someone had edited together very skillfully with some very, very well done narration of some very interesting concepts. It was called Workers of the World Relax, basically against work ethic as a primary motivational and moral force.
Replacing work with play. That's the way I like to think of it.
Who is it written by?
Bob Black.
Bob Black. And
Bob Black.
Who was it edited and voiced by? Aaron Moritz.
Aaron Moritz
did it. I thought it was great. I thought it was a really entertaining video that made me think. So I said, oh, this guy's got talent. He's in my network now. Click. And then, I show up, little ding on yours.
Yeah.
Friend request. Who is this guy?
Who? Probably didn't even look at it. It's just like, yes, because I say yes to everyone. Huh?
You're like Jim Carrey in the 2012 film Yes Man.
The first time I remember interacting with you, I posted this list of studies that support the idea that cannabis cures cancer, and you commented and said some of the links were broken.
It's a helpful tip from just internet acquaintance to internet acquaintance.
Internet acquaintance. I can't remember exactly how I came to be clicking and looking at your page, but at one point I was looking at your page and I was like, oh, this guy's cute and he makes nice words. I sent him a message and was like, hey, we live in the same city. And
oh yeah, because I was closing my Facebook. I was having one of those kind of Facebook breakdowns where people are like, I'm not into this anymore, but it has power over me.
Yeah, and you closed that account. You don't use that account at all anymore. So if that had happened before I messaged you, we might not even be Facebook friends anymore. Your new account.
If I hadn't done an attention-seeking, I'm closing Facebook now post,
right?
Seriously Wrong wouldn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah. So we started messaging back and forth, and you had the idea of wanting to do little videos, cartoons / slideshow informational videos, and we were like, okay, let's meet up and talk about it. And then we met at Café du Soleil.
I was there earlier today on Commercial Drive, Vancouver, British Columbia, unceded Coast Salish territory.
We sat and talked. I was like, I think we should do a podcast. I remember telling you that night after we talked on Facebook. I was like, would you be interested in doing a podcast? You were like, yes, I've always wanted to do a podcast.
Yeah, I've been talking about it. There's a couple of friends of mine who I like tried to get podcasts off the ground with, but I just can never find a partner who was committed to the idea of podcasts as a good idea that was also feasible. There was always either someone being like, it's not a good idea, or it's not a feasible idea. It was never both good and feasible. Let's do it. Even though I had like equipment and yeah,
I also had equipment from previous attempts at doing a podcast. And then Seriously Wrong. So
match made in heaven.
Well, the second time we met up, we were just like talking a bit about the show, and then we were like, okay, well, let's just record one. So yeah, third time we hung out. I'm pretty sure it was third time we hung out. We recorded the first episode.
This has been Seriously Wrong Story Time. Today's episode was called Where did Seriously Wrong come from, and how did it start, and who are these guys?
Hey everyone, me again. I know, it's probably getting annoying hearing me bust in like this all the time. And, you know, nobody's saying that the people who don't donate aren't good people. A lot of you have valid reasons for not donating, and many of you just don't want to donate, and that's fine. But Shawn and I put a lot of time and a lot of work into this podcast, and if you could, go to our Patreon page, check out what's available there. Any amount of money, 25 cents an episode, 50 cents an episode, $2 an episode, $4 an episode. It is all amazing. So amazing. We thank you so much for going to your browser right now, typing in patreon.com/seriouslywrong and signing up to be a patron. Thank you so much. So the internet is kind of like, I'm assuming you've never heard of the internet.
Yeah, what's the internet? Fill me in.
Internet is this really awesome technology that like connects computers together and allows them to share information. Files. Yeah, files. And because you
like
can
Metallica.
you can create a copy of Metallica. If I have a Metallica song on my computer,
God knows why you would, but
yeah,
I can suspend disbelief.
Just
for the,
let everyone know I do
it.
not have any Metallica songs on my computer. But if I did,
some good old rock.
So it's created this situation where it's really easy to give things away. Like we make this podcast, and we don't have to do a podcast for every single person who's going to download the show. We can just make one podcast, and then everyone who exists for the rest of all time,
they can all have a copy. Like we don't need to manually record it again for each of them.
Yeah, exactly. Because if we did, like, we probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah, that would be pretty tiresome.
So what the internet's done is created a situation of abundance of a specific kind of anything that's an information good or an information service.
And not just the internet. Just crucially, I want to interject that the internet itself is a connection between general purpose computers, and the internet can also be used to connect non-general purpose computers like iPads and cell phones. General purpose computing is the power of the internet. If we don't have general purpose computing, open source computing, this is the heart of the internet. This is the spirit of the internet. It's not just the network. I just want to interject.
Yeah,
that.
Definitely. Like if everything was an Apple iPhone, there'd be a lot of shit. Even though the internet would exist, there'd be a lot of shit you can't do if there was no way to jailbreak them.
And currently we're trending away from open platforms, and we're trending towards proprietary platforms with code that you can't read yourself.
Is that actually true? Like there's a trend in market share or something? Or?
I'm not sure if it's in market share or just I'd say, well, like there used to not be iPads and there used to not be smartphones. So as far as market share goes, we've went from 100% general purpose computing to less than 100% general purpose computing.
Right. But people still use regular computers, and also you can hack those. I know it takes work, but you can jailbreak it and use it for a lot more things that they might not allow. Anything that's kind of physically possible with the processor and stuff.
As long as it's legal.
What do you mean?
As long as it's legal to like open and modify your own devices. Because also if there was like a recent copyright case with John Deere saying that they're not selling vehicles, they're leasing vehicles. And
licensing, I saw that headline.
Yeah. They're using the copyright system to build this insane system of corporate ownership where everything produced still belongs to the corporation who made it. It's like a library card that you have to return rather than being something that you buy.
They're trying to fuck with our property rights.
There's let's not get into this. I don't support property rights.
Right. You'd like John Deere to own everything.
If John Deere was a worker-owned collective, then I don't know.
So basically, since the internet has started, people, anarcho-communists, have been like, hey, this represents a microcosm, potentially a macrocosm of what we desire. This represents a system where, and right from the beginning, this has been true of the internet, where people give things away for free without any specific expectation of getting something back from each person who gets it. Like I put a song up on the internet and 1 million people download it. I'm not expecting each of those people to send me a penny or a thank you note. That you're gifting things to the internet, to the people on the internet, and in return you're getting everything that has been gifted to the internet. You're creating a system wherein you want to contribute to it because there is so much there that you can get from it. There's sort of an inherent reciprocity there where, like, no matter how much you contribute to it, no matter how much content you create for the internet, no matter how much code you write for some open source program, you're going to be getting back more than you can offer. There's so many free things. Like, we make one podcast, and
in exchange we get thousands and thousands of podcasts.
Yeah, I listen to maybe like 10 or 20 semi-regularly, not every episode, but yeah, so just on the podcast front, 20-fold. And there's so many things that I don't make any of.
That's so generous of all those people who make those podcasts.
Right, I know.
They really must be exceptional individuals.
So this is what's called a gift economy, this idea where you give without specific expectation of an exchange happening or a direct reciprocity. There's still an expectation of some reciprocity. Like, if we were just posting these podcasts, nobody said, hey, I like this, nobody downloaded it, we were just posting them, nothing was happening, nobody...
Just zero likes on Facebook. It's just 2 likes. Yeah. 2 likes on Facebook. Aaron Moritz, Sean Villiers have liked it, and they're just sharing episodes every week.
We probably wouldn't have kept making the podcast for this long.
No, it's true.
So there is expectation of reciprocity, and reciprocity can take many forms, just general, like, esteem or popularity or kudos.
Feeling esteemed and feeling useful.
Yeah, just the feeling good of giving a gift to people makes you feel good about yourself.
David Graeber, who wrote The Utopia of Rules, which is today's Synchronicity Book Club, in one of his books, he refers to interpersonal communism as something that's practiced all the time, even by people who don't appreciate the Karl Marx narrative of big tent communism, whatever it means to different individuals. He called interpersonal communism giving to someone with the understanding that they would also give to you in your situation, which is, I like, is like a little rhetorical thing to liberate the idea of communism from the imposed McCarthy barriers to understanding it, is seeing tiny elements of communism in your everyday life.
Yeah, definitely. And communism is a gift economy. Like, what communism is, and especially and specifically anarcho-communism, is the idea that we can take the idea of a gift economy, which actually originates from anthropology and from our human ancestors, and update it into post-industrial society, that after the revolution, we can implement a neo-gift economy called communism, anarcho-communism, where we, no longer have these problems of alienation and commodity culture and things like that. So interpersonal communism, what you just described, is the mindset, the consciousness of the gift economy. You mentioned Vancouver. We're in Vancouver, that were unceded Coast Salish territories. The Coast Salish people, along with many other Pacific Northwest coastal tribes, practice something called the potluck, which is one of the kind of like archetypal, I don't know if archetypal is the right word to use there, but it's an example of a gift economy at work, where people from many different tribes and groups come together and give shit to each other. And there's almost a spirit of, in these things, competition of, like, who can give the most.
Who can make everyone else the most happy.
Yeah, who can be the most prestigious person by offering the most, giving the most away. And it's an interesting thing, because it's like that competition mindset of capitalism, but like totally turning it on its head and being like, no, the competition is to how much can you give away.
Well, I'm a big believer in using forces that exist, and maybe it's a ridiculous thing to imagine that human beings will just cease being competitive entirely at some point. And maybe the intersection between our competitiveness and our empathy might be something that could actually save the world.
Yeah, totally. The way that these tribal people set this up is like doing that, like channeling competition into who can compete to be the most empathetic. And they would even have the host of this particular potluck would challenge one of the other chieftains to exceed him in power by giving away more than him, or by actually burning more goods than he did. I'm not saying we have to do all these things, but just this idea of giving away. If you couldn't do that, if you lost, you kind of just not lose some face.
You just be less cool.
Lose prestige. Yeah, exactly. But you might make a good showing even if you don't quite win.
I mean, and potluck's fun. There's food around. There's piles of shit getting burned. It's worth it.
Yeah,
even if you're not the coolest guy at the end of the potluck, everyone had a good time.
Yeah, and it's really fucked up is that
that's how I feel about anarcho-communism.
In Canada, they actually made these illegal because they were like, you can't be giving away things. Like, there's something about, like, I was reading blankets from the Hudson Bay Company, like the fact that they were giving so many blankets from the Hudson Bay Company away at potlucks got the government.
Oh, it was like fucking over their
ire or something. Yeah, maybe it was messing with their.
That reminds me of the Pirate Bay.
Yeah, why?
Because you're giving away so many Metallicas.
Right, for free that the Hudson Bay Metallica Company gets mad. Yeah.
They should rename it the Potluck Bay.
Yeah, no, they totally should. So yeah, the way that gift economies work then, and the way that gift economies kind of work on the internet, there's a little bit of different, is that social customs regulate gift exchange. It's kind of like how we regulate, if you want to use that word, Christmas presents. Like, if you keep giving someone Christmas presents every year and they never get you anything, you might lose some respect for them. You might stop getting them Christmas presents. So
hopefully the second before the first.
Yeah, right. So there's not an explicit exchange the way there is in a monetary economy, but there's sort of an expectation of, hey, I helped you out, you're going to help me out. And this builds rapport between people. This builds social connections. So,
and it's a non-competitive framework, too. It's not just, I scratched Aaron's back, he scratched mine, and it's me and him against the world. I scratch the world's back, and the world scratches my back.
Yeah, totally. Like the internet version, for sure. Yeah. And,
or the gift economy version is...
Yeah, no, I was talking about specific people. Like, you would help your friends and family out with things. I mean, obviously, like back in the day of these tribal things, most of the help would be with people who are close to you, and so they would also help you back.
And it feels bad to not reciprocate. It makes you feel crummy.
One thing I saw pointed out in some of the research I was doing for this is that actually the idea of giving a gift without any expectation of return is something that's really unique to highly socially unequal societies. Like, in order to give someone, say, like the way I might give change to someone on the street and not expect anything back from them is because I have so much more than them that I don't really feel the need to expect anything from them.
Wow.
So it's weird how that like thing that you're like, oh, that's a really good thing, giving without any expectation of return, is actually an artifact of just like super unequal societies.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like, myself included, we're so easily swept up into like different types of moral panic where we don't actually realize what is moral and what is not. Or
right,
like,
sure.
Like when people accuse activists of hypocrisy and stuff like that, it's like a moral panic of like, oh, they're not good enough, that means everything they say is invalid or something. Because I just kind of held in my head like, yeah, it's nice to give without expecting anything in return. But that is, well, Ayn Rand would love this.
Right.
But yeah, because it is a situation of
and
inequality.
That's not to say, no one should ever do it. We exist now in a society of like highly unequal, highly hierarchical society.
Yeah, like when you
it's all right.
give a homeless guy change, you shouldn't be like, what am I getting?
I'm not saying like we should end this. I'm just pointing out that it is an artifact of something that is maybe less desirable.
Yeah, it's symptomatic of deeper problems to give without expecting anything in return.
So yeah, reciprocity, kind of expected, reputation is at stake, severe social consequences for not complying, potentially excommunication. It makes it sound really negative almost. Like,
is this from Potluck? Or?
This is not from Potluck specifically, because those were events that were held. This is just from understanding of how these tribal gift economies functioned. But I mean, if you just think about it, if you're in a tribe and people are doing nice things for you all the time and you're not reciprocating, you're just a huge fucking asshole. And it would make sense that eventually they might be like, oh, well, we don't want to hang out with you anymore. Like, it's not necessarily a punishment so much as it is just a natural social consequence of like, I can't even really imagine that happening.
There's this story I heard, I think it might have also been from David Graeber, who's an anthropologist.
Yeah.
He was describing a society where if someone asks for something, you have to give it to them. And this is like based on some historical record we have of a tribal society where, like, if you caught a fish and someone's like, can I have that fish? Then you always, just like the social custom is, yes, you can have this fish. It's the best fish and you should have it.
Right.
And so there was like an anecdote about a guy who started taking advantage of the system and asking people too much for things. And so instead of them saying, no, you can't have the fish, they just killed him.
Right. And that's how we should run society now.
Exactly.
No, I mean, it's funny. Like, part of me wants to like idealize this and be like, oh, the gift society is the greatest thing ever. And like, but then there's these parts where you're like, oh yeah, everyone's people and different ways of dealing with things that maybe aren't the best either. The term gift economy has been thrown around basically since the internet got started, because that has been present on the internet since it got started. And there's also been a lot of predictions of how it's going to revolutionize the business world, create like libertarians, right libertarians, capitalist people also really love the internet because it's a place where the barriers to entry to starting your business have been like radically lowered. And so it's really interesting because it's kind of created this space where anarcho-communism and anarcho-capitalism vaguely exist side by side, and in a lot of instances are kind of symbiotic with each other.
There's a great degree of consilience in the way that these two groups look at the narrative of the internet.
Yeah, definitely. And like specific examples of like, there are these huge corporations like Facebook and Google who, you know, are making a lot of money in the commodities market, and commodity being you and selling you advertising. But they're also providing these amazing tools for people to use for free. Like, there's so much shit Google gives you for free. Like, here's a free online word processor and all this storage space and an email account and free phone calls everywhere in Canada and the US. And like,
it only costs us knowing everything about you.
Right, exactly. Or even like things like Blogger. There's this huge gift economy, gift exchange going on of all these people posting free blogs on there, writing content, pouring their hearts into things for free. And it's being exchanged on a platform that is run by, again, advertisements. So both the predictions of the radical anarcho-communists of this massive gift economy proliferating, and the predictions of the radical libertarians of the internet being a dot-com commodity boom, amazing capitalist orgy, have both come true. Because
there was no scarcity of internet real estate.
Exactly.
We were able to expand to include both ideologies could exist side by side.
Side by side, and like intermeshed with each other in interesting ways that people maybe necessarily didn't see coming.
Hashtag rainbow position.
Yeah, so like the internet made anarcho-communism technically and socially feasible, like made it conscionable for us to record a radio broadcast and to create this gift and give it to people. What we get back from doing this podcast, like I said, we get the whole internet. we get kudos, we get likes on Facebook, we get people saying we really like the show and changed my perspective on something, which is insanely gratifying. It's like heartwarming and the greatest thing ever. Really.
Yeah, or just hearing that something had meaning to someone.
Yeah, or even someone just being like, hey, I like your podcast. It's great. It's amazing. Those things are kind of what the stuff I was reading called intangible reciprocity, in terms of it's not a concrete thing. And there is a lack of tangible reciprocity.
But how could someone participating in the internet gift economy get tangible reciprocity? Like, what have other artists done in the past?
Well, I mean, we already have a donate button on the website.
It's true. And we've received some donations that were very nice.
So we've already participated in some tangible reciprocity. We actually put it up the first time because someone asked us to. Someone was like, I want to give you some money. How do I do that? And we're like, oh, okay. PayPal account. Here you go. So then we put it up on the website and gave people the option to donate to us.
And it helped us buy some sweet new equipment.
It's funny. As soon as I started talking about this, I was like, oh, God, it's bad. I can't even mention this idea of tangible reciprocity.
So let's talk about that. You feel self-conscious about being vulnerable.
Yeah. We're getting to this point where I'm like circling around to like talking about how people on the internet are trying to get money for their creative output, basically.
And there's these successful, Kickstarter campaigns, crowdfunding, monthly donation systems.
Yeah, lots of people are doing it. Like, people have shown far and away that they're more than willing to do this. I donate to 2 podcasts. Like, I have a subscription to them because I wanted the extra stuff that they offer for their donations. Like the anarcho-capitalist love, this is really voluntarism taken to the extreme, where we voluntarily create this content and give it away for free, and any payments we receive would be like entirely voluntary.
And I would be very adverse to have people donating because of capitulation and not out of their own intent.
If someone was donating and not feeling good about donating, I would be like, stop, please. It makes you sad.
Unless they're donating a lot.
Yeah, then
that's why they felt uncomfortable. Then I'd be like, please
donate more.
Keep donating. If you could increase it, that would be good.
Yeah. So it's not content dependent. That's the sort of key to making it what I was just calling like level 2 voluntarism. You get the podcast either way. It's like busking. It's like someone standing on the street with their guitar, playing a little song for the people who walk by. And if people choose to, if they want to, they can throw some dollars into their hat.
Yeah, a little doobie or whatever.
We have a mailing address if anyone wants. Because we get so much from the internet, like just naturally, people want to give back.
I like these shows. These guys are funny. I like them. I want them to keep doing it, and I want to help.
Exactly. People want to. People want to help us. People want to help other podcasts. Like, this has been proven over and over again.
We just naturally, like, as human beings, want to help each other, especially with things that we're interested in.
Exactly. So there's been kind of 3 main subcategories of operationalized reciprocity laid out. First one is voluntary payments, where we were just talking about donations and tipping. The idea there is there's no fixed price. People can give whatever they want to give. This keeps free services viable. Like, it's possible for people to keep doing things like this on a continued basis because they're able to live and, eat food and do all the things that money lets people do. And also, the same intangible benefits we get from giving out a gift of like, oh, I feel good about myself. Like, those intangible benefits also come to the person offering a voluntary payment, being like, oh, I feel good that I'm supporting this show, or, whatever. The thing with voluntary payments, which many people have come up against, is there's no safeguards against non-reciprocity, which I mean is not necessary a lot of the time on the internet, given that there's so many people. But some of the ways people have come up with to kind of get around that are things called the street performer protocol, which is the idea that a product like a podcast or something is released in installments, and then there is a, quote, threat, implicit or explicit, that continued release depends on getting a certain quota of donations. And there's a version of that they actually call the Stephen King protocol, because this is exactly what he did. He wrote a book called The Plant and then started releasing it online, 1 chapter at a time, and only releasing each chapter as the donation level hit certain goalposts. I don't know what the numbers were, so I'm making these up. Like I got $1,000, so here's chapter 1. I got $10,000, so here's chapter 14 or whatever. So that's an interesting way of trying to get around that safeguard thing. But I feel like the implicit threat of it not continuing might just be like part and parcel of like, we might not be able to keep doing this if we're not getting any return for it, like monetarily. That might not be something we're interested in or worth doing, but I don't think making explicit threats and quota donations is really necessary. It seems like kind of a holdover, or just, I don't know. I'm gonna be like, that's an old way of thinking, man. And then there's the idea of freemium, which is the main content goes out for free, and then extra features or extra content is given with contribution of some kind.
Yeah, I'm not. Maybe it is an old way of thinking. I'm not totally opposed to that mode of. I've never heard of that Stephen King method. It's interesting. Let's do it from now on for this show.
Yeah, we're not going to release this episode until we have $10,000. Every episode, we actually.
Plus, we'll shoot this dog.
So voluntary payments was one. Another one is what's called purpose gifting, which is like, I really like your podcast. I'd like for it to sound better, so I'm going to gift you a new microphone. And so like things like Amazon wish lists or stuff like that falls under the category of purpose gifting. Like, I'm going to make a new table for you to podcast from. I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, what do you offer a
podcasting table
podcaster?
is so garbage. Can hear that old podcasting table through the microphone.
I think they didn't mention this. It was kind of an old article, but I feel like crowdfunding, even though it's money and they said purpose gifting is not money, I feel like crowdfunding kind of falls under purpose gifting, at least if it's for a specific project, because you are giving money, but you're giving with the specific intent of like, use this for completing this project, rather than just like, this is a donation because I like what you're doing, use it for whatever you want. And the last one is content gifting, which is spreading your content further on the internet, because information on the internet becomes more valuable to the person who created it. The more people who are listening to it, the more good it's going to do for that initial person. So content gifting is helping to propagate further the stuff that you are listening to, and as a way of giving back to them, as a way of helping them. That was the third way to give tangible reciprocity.
Interesting. So like the Pirate Bay is always giving its content gifting Metallica.
Yeah, totally. And Metallica's not appreciating it, but they're definitely helping them with that. Yeah.
So we at the Seriously Wrong podcast are asking for money today, asking for help. We
got sunglasses in the shape of dollar signs on, both of us.
So, naturally, I don't believe in holding back information, especially not from our audience, who we love and respect so dearly. So I want to kind of teach you a little bit about asking for money, if you don't already know, just because I've been researching the tactics for doing so. First of all, just a note, if you're going to look into this yourself, you're going to run into a lot of very explicitly manipulative language where they're talking about how to deceive people into giving you more money.
How to trick someone into emptying their bank account.
Basically, yeah. You'll read something interesting and then you're like, oh, I see how these are framings that would work more effectively. And then on the same page, it'll be like, and make sure to keep asking them. Hard ask. If you ask for $1,000 and they offer 200, don't just say, okay, I'll take 200. Ask for 800. And if they say 300, 700.
If you ask for 1,000 and they're like, no, my family's starving, you say, okay, 900. Right.
So here's the 6 steps to the ask according to a specific person who I don't have any citation. So take it or leave it, whether or not you trust me. So the first step is you want to connect with your mark.
So in this example, you the audience, you listening would be our mark. Yeah. So we want to connect with you. Like, we like you. You're the audience. You listen to us. You like us, obviously.
What do we have in common? You like the podcast. We like the podcast. We make it. You listen to it. It's a binding force.
You're probably interested in like conflict resolution, politics, and making the world a better place post-scarcity.
Yeah, bringing fun into the political process and looking at play and work as things that are to be questioned and prodded at.
So these are all things we have in common.
And then the next step, the second step, is make the transition. That's where you'd say something like, listen, I've got something really important to ask you about. You want to make this transition smooth. You've brought them in this case, we've brought you in. You trust us. And we're saying, oh, we have this thing in common. Like, we're connected by this podcast. Hey, listen, something really important that I need to talk to you about. And this is the point where you make the connection. You remind the mark. You remind the mark of your relationship with them and why.
This is part 3?
Part 3.
So
yes.
you make the connection initially, and then part 3 is reestablish a connection, or like the
first the wording they use is connect with them for the first one. The third is make the connection.
Okay.
So
okay.
the slight semantic difference there indicates that at first you're looking for common ground, and at third you're looking to have an emotive or like interpersonal, like real connection.
Okay. Right.
So, for example, the first one might be like, oh, we're on the same sports team together. And the third one would be like, I've always seen that you've been very supportive of your family, and I have strong family values also.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And the fourth step is charmingly titled, Make Them Cry.
So this is like why you need help, why you need money.
Yeah,
what is money specifically? So
what is the situation like? Why is the situation so fucked that money is required to fix it? In marketing, it's people sometimes refer to it as like turning up the heat. Like you want to make your mark more uncomfortable. This is something they use in marketing and sales also, is you want to convince them that the only way that they can fix their laundry problem is by buying your really nice laundry machine. So you remind them of laundry problems, and then you increase the intensity of the laundry problems almost to the point of absurdity as far as you can go before you give them this relief, which is the understanding that buying the washing machine will fix their problems.
So hypothetically, I work for Tacos for Africa. I'm trying to get donations for tacos. So like the make them cry is like you explain the dire taco situation in Africa.
The absence of tacos in Africa and how essential it is that we get that money.
Yeah, to make tacos, get the bean tacos, get protein to these Africans. Okay, I got it. They're starving.
Yeah, and in the case of our podcast, it's something like, we're approaching a 0 point where we're going to enter a dystopia unless we can learn to speak to each other and learn to appreciate every aspect of ourselves. Because if we don't teach ourselves to love ourselves, then we can't love each other and we can't save the world. Step 5, make them understand why you need money. So make it applicable to directly where the money is going to be spent. In the case of our podcast, getting more time to work on it. We both work full-time jobs. We're busy people. We've got other hobbies. Ideally, in the long term, we want more time to work on this and fully explore what seriously wrong means and fully explore the things that we've already started exploring. And also more pragmatically, like being able to have new equipment, rent spaces for potential events, get different types of equipment, move into video, pay for our subscriptions to animation software and audio editing software, pay for our hosting. These are all very pragmatic places where money coming in is going somewhere, and making people understand that is an important part of asking for money. And finally, ask for something concrete and specific. The person you're asking for money, you're saying, oh, donate whatever you want. You're making them do work. The more work you're asking people to do, the less likely they are to comply and give you the money that you deserve.
Right. So in the case of Tacos for Africa, you might be like, we need a donation of $1,000 from you.
Yeah, or we are hoping to raise ideally $9,000 to $10,000 a month. Currently, we're only at $600. Can you help us bridge that gap? I don't know if this is something that you would consider doing, but would you be interested in giving us a gift of $10,000? I know that sounds outrageous to someone who doesn't have $10,000 lying around, but this is a real fundraising thing that people do. They actually target people based on their income, based on the neighborhood they live in, and tailor pitches towards demographics that have higher amounts of money and make ridiculous fucking asks where they ask for $11,000, $10,000, $15,000 from individuals. And there are people on Earth right now who are willing to do that.
Right.
And the only thing that stops you as a fundraiser, if you're fundraising for organizations that you care about, the only thing that's going to stop you from being able to access that type of funds is the belief that it's impossible just because you're personally poor. Yeah, so if you want to go deep into the fundraising world, and I have looked at these websites, there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance in feeling like they're describing how to be a bad person.
Right, you feel dirty just for going to them.
Yeah, well, but there's logic behind these things, because a lot of the time for like political organizations, typical organizations that rely on donations, they actually do have to be aggressive in order to continue to exist. And so because being aggressive as a fundraising strategy is generally something that works, it's not something that I want to participate in myself. It makes me feel uncomfortable, but it's something that works. There's a incentive loop. The people who are best at fundraising are the people who are most comfortable blurring these lines, understanding that it's for a good cause. So yeah, here's 3 rules of fundraising that are just true, and they're maybe not comfortable truths if you're a person who doesn't like the idea of participating in the money system for whatever reason, or you feel guilty about asking for money, but they're just factually true, which is, number 1, you're never going to get more money than you ask for. If you ask for $500 and someone has $1,000 to give, they're just going to give you $500 if you ask for $500.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why they recommend, starting high and working your way down and negotiating and stuff like that.
Right.
As a fundraising strategy, especially when you're cold calling people, maybe past supporters and things like that, that's the best way to bring in money. The second is that you're almost always going to get less money than you ask for. And so therefore, again, asking for more just makes sense.
Ask high, right.
And the third is asking aggressively for money and not backing down in aggregate will get you more money.
Okay, so even if you happen to like piss a few people off with your aggro attitude,
the amount of people who will capitulate will offset that cost.
Okay, interesting.
Which is why, public outreach here in Vancouver, they'd like stand on the street with clipboards and try to get you to give them credit card information to donate to various organizations.
Yeah.
They're very, very aggressive campaigners, to the point where I'm very annoyed with that organization. They make me feel like a terrible person every time.
Yeah, I have to make sure my headphones are in, look straight ahead, and completely ignore what they're saying to me as I pass by and act like they're not people in order to make that as smooth as possible. The fact that I'm not going to give them any money.
Yeah. It's an uncomfortable position to be in, but it's also the way that these organizations are able to do what they do, like these international advocacy organizations.
Sure.
So, and that's fundraising. That's the territory. That's the seas that you're sailing in if you are asking for money. Those 3 things are factual. So the biggest mistake that people make in fundraising is they ask too vaguely. So, for example, will you, the audience, please help me and Aaron by giving us some money on our site or whatever?
Right, like how pretty much up until now we've been like, there's a donate button on the site.
Yeah, so these vague pitches, they're just less effective in aggregate. It's because you're making people do the work. But a specific pitch that identifies the purpose of the money and names a specific amount in aggregate is way more effective. Like, so, for example, we need more time to produce the quality and variety of content that we desire and that the audience desires. And we think that if our basic human needs are at first subsidized and then eventually maintained by donations, that we'll be able to put more time into creating a better podcast that will maybe perhaps be the greatest podcast of all time. But we can't do it without your help. Would it be possible for you to consider giving us a donation of $500 to keep the project going?
I think it's worth noting that for every $1,000 a month that we get, we can each take 1 day of work off a week for that month. I'm just breaking it down from the idea that if we got $5,000 a month, we could both quit our jobs and work full time doing podcasts and other projects like it. And so $1,000 a month, we 1 day off, $2,000 a month, 2 days off.
And that's
gradual.
Very useful time.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want to go back and forth and do some different specific pitches? I've written some here.
The Seriously Wrong team has ambitious plans to expand our reach and help the global justice movement boldly step towards utopia. Can we count on your monthly contribution of $1,000 to help get us there?
I have something important to announce, which is that Aaron and I have started the gears in motion to produce a full-length feature film that we intend to get into a theatrical release. Your sustaining monthly donations can help make that a reality. Will you help us with a contribution of $2,000?
We at the podcast here want to fully explore history, give a platform to cutting-edge thinkers, and reaffirm the political side of fun and comedy. We can't do it without your help. Would you be willing to offer a monthly donation of $3,000 to make that a reality?
Hi, this is Shawn from Seriously Wrong, and I'm here to tell you we don't have time to wait. If we don't get key tactical parts of the Seriously Wrong message out to the masses now, the future is looking to be a bleak place. Will you step up to the plate, take out your credit card, and show the children of the future that you stood up for them when it mattered most with a monthly donation of $5,000?
Desmond Tutu said that if you are neutral in a situation of injustice, you're on the side of the oppressor. If you are neutral in a situation of internet-enabled crowdfunding campaign of a wonderful podcast, you're also on the side of the oppressors. Support us with a monthly contribution of just $10,000. Actually, what we're asking for is that you go to our Patreon. Please check it out. See if you can give just $1, a few dollars per episode. For $3 per episode, you will get access to special content that will not be available to people who are not paying $3 an episode. So if you think that's worth it, please go to Patreon, check it out. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back again next week with another episode.
That's our episode for the day. Please give us money.
Thanks for listening this week. Thank you for not hating us, for being vulnerable and asking for money. I mean, assuming you don't hate us. I don't think you do.
So as usual, this is the Seriously Wrong podcast. I'm Shawn and this is Aaron. You can contact us on our website, srslywrong.com, seriouslywrong.com. You can use the contact form to let us know what you thought about today's episode. I'm really interested to hear about what you think would be beneficial for us to use as funding mechanisms in the future. If you have opinions on this, or if you think that you've got an insight that would help us to be able to get money and then be able to make more content, that would be super welcome feedback.
If you really don't have any money, or you just don't want to give us money, I guess that's okay. Feel free to do that content gifting thing. Post our show around on the internet. It's hugely appreciated. Whenever I see it brought up, or whenever I'm Googling the name SRSLY, Seriously Wrong, and I see that someone's mentioned it on a forum or something, me and Shawn will send them to each other and be like, ooh, look, this is awesome. Someone mentioned us nicely. It's so great. It's so heartwarming. We love it when you do it. Leaving reviews for us on iTunes and Stitcher, all that stuff.
Another way that you can help us is call the Seriously Wrong hotline at 1-866-770-8754. Let us know how you're feeling, what you're thinking about, what you think of what we're doing, and what you want to see in the future. And if you've got a point that you just want to make, another way that you can help with the podcast is say something on the audio line that would be good for us to play on the show. Like, you know, if you want, it's open to that.
Please, whatever you want. It's easy for us to plunk it in the show if it's good. If you have a question for us, just a random question you want us to answer, please.
We'll do an ep like that sometimes, you know, a little bit of audience host barrier breakdown, some dissolving of the rigid hierarchical barriers of the old system and moving into a gift economy ideology.
Yeah.
Thanks in advance.
Yeah, thank you for all your donations. Thank you. Oh, wow, it's shooting up. We're
shooting in. Look, it's coming in right now. We can finally release this episode.
Yeah.
We got enough donations to release this.
Next time on Seriously Wrong, Shawn and Aaron make root beer floats in their mouths, and then somebody swallows a Mentos.